Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Corina, and today we are doing something a little bit different. I am going to address a big question that I get quite often, and it is regarding sinking funds. So I get several questions, like I said, pretty often, almost on at least every video that I do regarding our budget, about what sinking funds are, where sinking funds are kept, how much we have in sinking funds, how often we deposit, and so all of those things I'm going to address today and hopefully answer your questions and just, yeah, provide some clarification. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay friends, so the first thing I want to address is what is a sinking fund. For us, sinking funds are specific savings accounts that we have set up, and they are for things that we know are going to be costs that we will incur throughout the year, but they're not necessarily a set amount, or they're recurring throughout the year, or they're a big cost item, and so we want to be able to put money away towards those things specifically, and have that allocated and be able to use that money throughout the year as those costs come up. So for instance, the biggest one that people always talk about is Christmas or the holidays. We know that Christmas is at the end of the year every single year, and so there's no reason why that should be an emergency, why we should have to pull emergency fund money for Christmas. And so we've developed a sinking fund to help us fund our Christmas budget, and we deposit money into that throughout the year. The second question I want to address is how often do we fund our sinking funds? We have sinking fund deposits go through twice a month. They are automated, so they're automatic from our checking account into the savings accounts, and that happens twice a month. So each account basically gets one deposit per month, but we just spread them out throughout the against like 2 different pay periods throughout the month. So that helped us at the time to kind of ease like the load of how many payments were coming out at one certain pay period. Now, quite honestly, it wouldn't matter like when that came out, and so we'll probably go through and make them more of like a streamlined specific date, probably at the start of next year, just because we're used to how they are right now, so it's working for us. Let's see. The other question that I want to address is where are our sinking funds kept? We have a Capital One 360 account that we keep our sinking funds in. It is specifically a savings account. We also did just open a checking account there as well, that we are using and we'll basically use in case of like emergencies. Like that's where we'll be keeping our emergency fund in the future. But basically, you are able to open a very large number of accounts within Capital One 360, and so that's given us the ability to open as many accounts as we need sinking funds for. So we have a specific sinking fund for each and every different account. I know that does not work for everyone. That is what works for us. That's something that we like because it makes it easy. We don't have to track it on like an Excel spreadsheet. We just can go into the account and see, okay, there's $59 in hair, so you know I can schedule my appointment and we'll be covered for this month. So we don't have to like think about it or go to an Excel spreadsheet or do a calculation in an account or anything like that. It's just really, really easy, and that is my number one goal with our budget, is making it super easy and user friendly. So that works for us. So let's go over our sinking funds. Okay guys, so our first sinking fund is for our anniversary. The next one is birthdays and gifts. The next is car. Then we have Christmas, clothes, hair, we have Kiki, medical expenses, mini M when that happens, personal for my husband, personal for myself, a rent increase, and weddings that we are attending / in this year. Now, this is a lot of sinking funds. When we first started, we had a sinking fund for Christmas, we had one for Kiki, and I believe medical expenses, and that was honestly, oh, and car, yeah, and that was really it. That was it. That was all we could do. It was even we even kind of rotated like which sinking funds we funded at that time. Now that we've gotten more income and we've gotten further along in our baby step journey, we did add these sinking funds at the beginning of this year, and basically as the year has progressed, we've kind of edited them and adjusted things as time went on. But really, when you're getting started with sinking funds, it takes a while to realize what you actually need. So for us, last year we had our Christmas fund, but then when birthdays came up or we wanted to give someone a little gift, we didn't know really where to pull that money from, and so we would end up having to like reshuffle our budget, and so we just decided to make a sinking fund for birthdays and gifts because those things just happen, and they happen at different times during the year. There's a greater quantity of them at certain times during the year for our family, so I'm sure that's maybe the same for your family also. So it's helpful to have that money just sitting aside and going into that account each and every month. We don't have to think about it, and when we need to buy a gift for someone, we can just pull money out of there. I actually used money from our birthdays and gifts account this week, twice actually. One, I bought my coworker a little birthday treat today, and then another was a gift for one of our students, a book. She's going away to college, so we decided to get her a book, and we just pulled it out of there, and that money was sitting there and not really doing anything. So we just pulled it out of there, and we're able to move on and not have to like reshuffle our grocery budget or something to get someone a gift. So for these sinking funds, we have the estimated amounts that we wanted to save throughout the year, and this is how we actually broke up our sinking funds and figured out how much would be deposited each month. So basically we went through these and divided it by 12, and so we were able to know exactly how much we wanted to deposit each month in order to get to these totals. Some of them, well, for instance, the medical expenses doesn't have a total because we really weren't sure. We have a really good we have really great health insurance, and so our medical expenses are really quite low, but that's something that I knew could change with changing jobs and things like that, and so we wanted to really beef that up a little bit. So we've just been funding it and not really focused on a goal. If you have like a deductible that you have to pay, or if you have specific medical expenses or costly medical expenses that are coming up, definitely set yourself a goal and just divide it out by however much time you have in order to hit that goal. But with everything else, we did that exact method. So for instance, for our cars, we estimated about $1,000. This is actually combining car maintenance as well as car registration, which you'll see we have two different sinking funds for, but we just kind of lumped everything together. With this, it varies a little bit, and we really just focus on the registration aspect, but we do also fund our maintenance sinking fund as well to make sure that we have enough in there for whenever we need an oil change, or if my husband, he does a lot of work on his car himself, so if he needs to get a part, he can go do that, and things like that. Our cars are pretty low maintenance because they're in good condition, so we don't need a ton for the maintenance, but it was a really good thing to have there. I do want to say also that our sinking funds are in addition to our baby emergency fund. So our baby emergency fund has been in our account since before we even had sinking funds, and so we don't count that as far as a sinking fund. That's just an emergency fund. So if something were to happen with a car, and say we needed to get new tires and we only had I don't know, $100 in the car maintenance fund, but the tires were $300. We would use the $100 from the car maintenance fund and then pull $200 from our emergency fund to cover the balance. So things like that. This is really just to kind of like protect us and kind of give us good parameters to work with, but it's not necessarily for emergencies. So if something were to come up that we had to use our emergency fund for, we would do that. Another thing that we are funding that has just been, what was I going to say? Another fund that we came up with was our rent increase fund. And when we created this, I wanted to, obviously we weren't sure, well, I shouldn't say obviously. So when we created our rent increase sinking fund, we weren't sure how much our rent would increase at our apartment. When we moved to our apartment last year, we did ask what the rent increase typically was, and they told us like a percentage, but I just wasn't confident in that because I've been told a percentage before and then it ends up being something completely different. With us, thankfully, at this complex, it actually was like right on that percentage, which was great. So our increase wasn't very much, but this rent increase fund does allow us to basically have an extra month of rent in our sinking fund. So as the time, we actually got our notification probably a good like 4 or 5 months before our rent went up, and so we were able to renew our lease and all that good stuff, and it was literally like just a fraction of what we thought it would be. So we basically reduced this fund to about half of what the $1,400 is that it's written here, to about half of that. So we knew that it didn't have to be as aggressive. We are going to beef this up again because we might want to move at the end of our next lease, and so we want to make sure that we have a good amount saved in there. But this is something that I think is huge and is really, really important. If you have a mortgage, I would say to create like a I think it's like homeowner's tax or something. I know this, there was something my sister-in-law was like completely shocked about when after she purchased her home. And so I think that's what I would create a sinking fund for if we were in a home. But yeah, we will always have a rent increase fund until we purchase our home, and then we'll basically transition it to like a home emergency fund or a tax, house tax fund or whatever it's called. I know nothing about houses so far, you guys, so just bear with me with that. But yeah, so those are our sinking funds, and the way that our sinking funds work is that we basically just pull from them when we need them. Our anniversary fund we have not touched at all this year, so when our anniversary rolls around in the next few weeks, we will have $300 in that fund. We're actually going out of town, so we'll be able to use that for our little like anniversary vacation, as well as get each other a little gift. And then other than that, yeah, we just use them as we need them. So the only thing I think has quite a bit in it is probably the mini fund, just because we don't have a child, so we don't really need that right now. What else? Christmas, of course, is also just really building itself up, and then once we get closer to December, probably in like October, November, we'll start pulling from that. I have purchased a couple of things for Christmas already, and I've used that fund. Our wedding fund is one that we have actually used quite a bit. I was really thankful for this fund, and I think I mentioned this in another video previously, but I was able to purchase my bridesmaid's dress when it was on a huge discount because we had this fund set up, and because I didn't have to scramble around and like stress out over paying the light bill or paying for a dress for the wedding. And I just had, we had this money just sitting there, so I was able to pay for that. And it's been really helpful because we're able to plan out gifts for weddings and things like that. So the next thing that I want to share with you guys is the amounts that we budget for our sinking fund each month, which is on the next page here. Okay guys, so here we have it broken down by category. And then we have the months of the year across the top here. And you'll see that some of these accounts we didn't fund in January. We were either just getting started or just kind of trying to recover from like the holidays. So we just put a kind of a hold on those. But basically each month we deposit the exact same amount into the sinking funds. We are going to beef up Christmas and the wedding fund because all of our weddings are happening right in the fall in the next like 6 weeks. So we're gonna just add a little bit more to that to make sure we have plenty to cover gifts and things like that. My husband is actually officiating several of the weddings that we're going to be involved in or going to, so that's kind of an expense that we weren't necessarily anticipating. It's going to be getting something for him to wear for those. And again, just making sure we have gifts, so all that good stuff. So for our anniversary, we've been funding $37 a month. Birthdays has been $20. Cars, like I said, we have two different funds, so $33 goes into registration and $30 goes into maintenance. For Christmas, we've been doing $50. We're actually bumping that up to $100 starting this month. Clothes has been $10, which is like really low, but we really don't need many clothes. So when we do, we will either like just pull from personal funds or something like that. But yeah, that's been pretty manageable. For hair, we do $40. For Kiki, she gets $15. Medical expenses is also $40. Mini is $50. Personal has been $10 for my husband and myself. Our rent increase was $50, or is $50, and then weddings has been $45. And for some of these, we just throw a little bit in kind of throughout the year or like as things come up. So this wedding fund we've actually been funding since last year, as well as our anniversary fund. So basically we started funding our anniversary fund back after like our last anniversary, so back in October, which is why you may look and like the numbers don't add up, but that one was actually funded for almost, well, it'll be a full year by the time our anniversary gets here. And for the weddings, we've been funding them for several months prior to this also because well, one of my friends got engaged about probably a little bit, about a year ago. and then we had a couple of other weddings that we knew were happening also, so we just started putting money there. So this is just for this actual like calendar year, but these have been spanning, you know, longer than that, and basically that's how we came up with our figures, was dividing that goal amount by the number of months that we had to allocate towards those funds. Alright guys, so there you have it. That is our sinking fund update. I hope I was able to answer the questions that you have. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know, and I can do like a part 2 or a continuation or whatever else you may want to know. Sinking funds are definitely something that is kind of, well, not even kind of. Sinking funds are definitely something that is very personal, and like I said, when we started our journey, we only had a few, and as we've gone on, they've progressed and we've added more. I know for some people, they like just having it all in one account and being able to pull from that, and they keep like a spreadsheet of what each breakdown is. Like I said, this is the best method for us just because everything is separate. We don't have to do any extra steps to figure out what's in which sinking fund, and so this works really well for us. So I would love to know what method you are using to track your sinking funds, or if you don't have sinking funds yet, which funds you're most looking forward to creating. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Have a great Saturday.